Hello and welcome. It's Wednesday, the 16th of April. You're tuned in to our 10 a.m. newscast here on ARIRANG TV. Let's take a look at what's making the headlines. Korea and Japan are holding talks in Seoul on Japan's wartime sexual enslavement of Korean women, with attention focused on Tokyo's stance on the highly emotive issue. China vows to play a positive role in promoting peace on the Korean peninsula, saying it opposes moves by any side that could cause tensions in the region. Plus, President Park Geunhye says sorry for the state intelligence service's involvement in forging evidence in an attempt to convict a suspected North Korean spy. But some news just coming in. The South Korean military says a passenger ferry is sinking some 20 kilometers off the coast of Jindo Island, southwestern Korea. The boat, which departed from Incheon and was heading for Jeju Island, is believed to be carrying around 350 people, including some students who were on a field trip. The boat sent a distress signal about 1 hour ago. Helicopters and rescue boats have been deployed to the area as well. No details yet on any casualties or what might have caused the ship to start sinking. Of course, we'll bring you updates on this story as we get them. Now, Korea and Japan are holding their first working-level talks on the so-called comfort women issue in Seoul on this Wednesday. Officials say the Korean representative, Lee Sang-dok, Director General of the Foreign Ministry's Northeast Asian Affairs Bureau, will reiterate Seoul's demand for an official apology and legal compensation from Japan for the Japanese military's wartime sexual slavery of Korean women. Tokyo claims the issue was resolved through a 1965 treaty when the two countries normalized their diplomatic ties. Today's meeting is the result of an agreement reached ahead of a trilateral summit in The Hague between Korea, Japan and the United States last month. Around 200,000 women, mostly Korean, were forced to serve the Japanese army in comfort stations in the early 20th century. Now, earlier this month, Japan lifted a self-imposed ban on arms exports that dated back some 5 decades. The Abe administration has been pushing to strengthen Japan's military capabilities, and potential buyers are already lining up to buy what the country has to offer. Our Song Ji-son reports.
A half-a-century-long ban on Japan's arms export has been lifted to help the nation beef up its weapons industry and self-defense capabilities. Japan's post-World War II constitution, drawn up in 1967, banned the country from waging war. Japan's cabinet says the country's arms exports will be monitored closely. Weapons will not be transferred to countries that violate international treaties or UN Security Council resolutions, and arms exports are only allowed if they contribute to peace or Japan's national security. Less than a week after easing its arms export regulations, Japan signed an agreement with Australia to jointly develop submarines while sealing a free trade deal. And plenty more foreign buyers are lining up. According to Japanese daily Nihon Keizai last week, officials from France and Britain have already paid visits to defense contractors like Mitsubishi and Kawasaki Heavy Industries. Tokyo is also likely to transfer weapons to Southeast Asian countries in similar situations with territorial disputes with China to bolster support on the issue.
The major goal of developing weapons is to arm the nation's own army. But when you also export the weapons, you can arm them at a lower cost because of the increased sales, and at the same time acquire a partially controlling power over the country that imports your weapons.
The world's top exporters, the United States and Russia, make up more than half of the world's weapons providers combined. Other leaders include Germany, France, and Britain, along with China, which is now the world's 5th largest arms exporter. But with Japan now in the mix, experts say it's now only a matter of time before the country emerges as one of the top players. Song Ji-son, ARIRANG News.
The top nuclear envoys of China and the United States have wrapped up their second day of talks in New York on ways to resume the long-stalled 6-party talks on denuclearizing North Korea. Kim Ji-yeon has the details.
Chinese nuclear envoy Wu Dawei and his U.S. counterpart Glenn Davies met for the second time this week to discuss ways to lure North Korea back to the six-party talks on its own denuclearization. In a statement Tuesday, the U.S. State Department said the talks had been productive and both sides had agreed on the fundamental importance of a denuclearized North Korea. The Chinese delegate did not comment about the closed-door meeting. Diplomatic sources in the United Nations were paying close attention to whether Wu would propose an arbitration plan on the human rights issue in North Korea. Pyongyang threatened to conduct a fourth nuclear test if the international community crossed the line by bringing up the regime's human rights abuses. The Chinese delegation spent 5 days in Pyongyang last month and has reportedly drawn up an arbitration plan that contains the North Korean stance on the matter. Wu and Davies will hold the third and last meeting in Washington on Friday. The meeting comes as Beijing's foreign ministry issued a rare statement Tuesday, saying it's opposed to any move that may result in tensions in the region, whether they be joint drills between South Korea and the U.S. or North Korea's threat of conducting further nuclear tests. It also urged all related parties to make joint efforts to ease the situation and said China would continue to play a positive role in promoting peace and stability in the region. The six-party talks made up of South Korea, China, the U.S., Russia, and Japan were suspended after North Korea walked out of them in 2008. Kim Jeon, ARIRANG News.
South Korea and the United States have opened a high-level military meeting at the Pentagon, with North Korea and pending alliance issues topping the agenda. On the first day of the two-day integrated defense dialogue Tuesday, South Korea and the US discussed Seoul's request to further delay the transfer of operational control of troops in the event of war. The two sides reportedly agreed in principle to delay the transfer due to the ongoing threat posed by North Korea, but the timing and extra details are still being ironed out. The allies plan to hold a two-day defense trilateral meeting with Japan starting Thursday. Now, the long-delayed South Korea-US defense cost-sharing pact has passed its first hurdle at South Korea's National Assembly. The Foreign Affairs Committee gave the green light to Seoul and Washington's renewed special measures agreement on sharing the cost of stationing US troops here in South Korea. Lawmakers agreed on Seoul paying some $880 million annually from this year through 2018. That's a 5.8% increase from last year. A delay of the pact's approval sparked concerns that Korean employees of US Forces Korea would be forced to take unpaid leave and that affiliated firms would have to suspend their operations. The bill will now be put up for a vote at a plenary session on Wednesday. High performance at a low cost is a very attractive combination for any product, and that formula has helped Korea's homegrown FA-50 fighter jet find a number of homes in the international market in recent years, and it's expected to find even more going forward. Our Shin Se-min reports.
Its original purpose was to serve as Korea's own light combat aircraft, but it's finding a home in the international market. The FA-50 is a light attack variant of the T-50 Golden Eagle supersonic advanced jet trainer operated by the South Korean Air Force. Co-developed by Korea Aerospace Industries and U.S. defense firm Lockheed Martin, the FA-50 is capable of combat action with advanced radar and missile capabilities. The FA-50 was initially designed to replace the nation's aging fighter jets, while the T-50 supersonic trainer jets were aimed for the international market. However, the T-50's price tag of over $22 million was a bit too high for many buyers, and it didn't sell as well as anticipated. But the remodeled FA-50 has filled its place. Capable of carrying 4,500 kilograms of weapons, the jet is in the same class as others made in Sweden, Italy, and Russia. But Korea's FA-50 is becoming more attractive because of its high performance in relation to cost. Korea Aerospace Industries signed a contract to deliver 12 fighter jets to the Philippines worth of $420 million in March. It follows similar deals to Iraq last year and Indonesia in 2011. Sights have now been set on Peru, Botswana, and the United Arab Emirates and the U.S., which may be looking to replace its aging Air Force T-38s. Korea Aerospace Industries and Lockheed Martin signed a memorandum of understanding on expanding defense cooperation in February of last year. Industry experts expect a deal on FA-50 exports with the U.S. Air Force sometime in 2017. Shin Se-min, ARIRANG News.
A Navy petty officer dispatched to a Korean contingency in Somalia has gone missing during an escort mission in the Gulf of Aden. The Joint Chiefs of Staff say the 22-year-old officer, identified only by his surname Ha, disappeared early Tuesday while a Korean destroyer was escorting 3 ships to a port in Yemen. Helicopters and ships have been dispatched to nearby waters, and sailors have been conducting a very thorough search of the ship, but have yet, as far, not found him. The 300-member Cheonghae unit has been dispatched to the Gulf of Aden since early 2009. This as part of global efforts to tackle piracy in the region and to protect Korean vessels off the Somali coast. Now, President Park Geunhye issued a rare public apology on Tuesday over the state intelligence agency's fabrication of evidence in a North Korean spy scandal. Our Park Ji-won reports.
At a cabinet meeting Tuesday, President Park expressed regret over the National Intelligence Service's lax oversight that allowed NIS officials to use forged evidence in a recent North Korean spy scandal.
유감스럽게도 국정원의 잘못된 관행과 철저하지 못한 관리 체계의 허점이 드러나서 국민들께 심려를 끼쳐드리게 되어 송구스럽게 생각합니다.
Calling on the spy agency to revamp itself completely, President Park then said if the NIS loses the public's trust once again, she will make sure those responsible pay the price. Taking responsibility for directing the forgery, one of the 3 vice chiefs of the intelligence agencies, Ho Chun-ho, resigned from his post, and President Park accepted the resignation. NIS Chief Nam Jae-jun also apologized earlier Tuesday morning, promising all-out reforms to root out corrupt practices within the agency.
The agency will overhaul its investigation practices and will push ahead reforms with excruciating effort to root out all wrong practices of the past so this type of incident never happens again.
The apology followed the prosecution's announcement on Monday that 2 documents submitted in the recent North Korean espionage case were fabricated by the intelligence agency. 2 additional intelligence agents were charged with forging border-crossing documents that were used against a former Seoul City employee who was accused of spying for North Korea. The 34-year-old former city employee defected from the North in 2004 and was charged with espionage early last year. He was acquitted of the spy charge against him last August, but prosecutors appealed the case. The forged documents were submitted during the trial. Prosecutors are demanding 7 years in prison for the former city employee. However, a final verdict on the case is expected to be released by the end of next week. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
The Korean government has unveiled a set of measures to boost the nation's very sluggish youth employment. The scheme includes the introduction of a Swiss-style apprenticeship program for students. Our Hwang Ji-ae has the details.
Here, students can develop specialized skills that are in high demand in the robot industry. Paek Sung-jun, who's in his first year of the so-called Meister School or vocational school, aims to get a job right after graduation.
I think I can easily adapt to the business atmosphere and learn a lot about the industry.
There are around 40 vocational schools in Korea, but the curriculum is slightly different from the European-style apprenticeship program where students learn and train while they work. So now the government aims to develop an apprenticeship program like that of Germany or Switzerland in these schools so students can receive direct training from companies more frequently. The plan starts next year at 7 trial schools, and companies participating in the programs will receive tax breaks. Those were part of the government's measures laid out on Tuesday to tackle the nation's slumping youth employment rate.
The weak youth employment rate means young people are losing the opportunity to raise their labor competitiveness by working. It is also a factor that could erode the nation's growth potential.
The measures are meant to address the flagging youth employment rate, which stood at 39.7% last year, far below the OECD average of 50%. The problem is that the nation's small and medium-sized businesses are also struggling with a labor shortage. With the nation's high college entrance rate, most young people want to work for large companies like Samsung and Hyundai.
Government measures should focus on improving working conditions of small and medium-sized businesses and raising awareness of SMEs among the younger generation.
Through these measures, the government expects to create 500,000 jobs by 2017. Progress will be reviewed during a weekly economy-related ministers' meeting. Hwang Ji-hye, ARIRANG News.
Now, it might be a bit smoggy today, but spring is in full bloom now in Korea, and the Korean government hopes more people will take some time to enjoy some trips within the country in an effort to boost the local tourism industry and to expand leisure activity options for citizens. The Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism has designated the first 11 days of May as National Travel and Tourism Week. During the period, over 1,100 tourism businesses nationwide, such as hotels, restaurants and tour-related products, as well as local governments, will join the initiative by offering special discounts and benefits for tourists. Detailed information can be found at spring.visitkorea.or.kr. Time now for a look at the international headlines we're following at this hour. For that, we connect live to our Eunice Kim standing by at the news center. Good morning, Eunice.
Hello, Mark. We'll begin in Ukraine, where its government has announced a military campaign against pro-Russian separatists in the east, and that it is underway. In what appears to be one of the first signs of the, quote, stage-by-stage anti-terrorist operation, Kiev said it has reclaimed a small airport in Kramatorsk after clashing with some 30 armed and uniformed men without insignia. The airport is just south of the city of Sloviansk, one of the cities seized by pro-Russian gunmen this past weekend. Acting President Oleksandr Turchinov said the aim of the operation will be to protect Ukrainian citizens and to stop the terror. Russia has warned against a military response to the pro-Russian movement, warning it could prompt Moscow to step away from Thursday's four-party negotiations on Ukraine in Geneva. At least 100 and as many as 200 girls are believed to have been kidnapped by militants in Nigeria this hours after a deadly rush-hour bus bomb that killed more than 70 there. The abduction took place at a hostel Monday night where the teenage girls were after being summoned to take an exam at school. Gunmen got past soldiers and police to complete the abduction. An official says some of the girls managed to escape by jumping off the moving open truck. The high school is in Borno State in northeast Nigeria, where the Islamist group Boko Haram has been active. Boko Haram, which means Western education is forbidden, have also been blamed for Monday's bus explosion. A whaling group in Japan says it will resume what it calls scientific whaling in the Antarctic. This despite a judgment by a UN court last month to halt the country's decades-old program. Court papers filed in the U.S. showed that Kyoto Senpaku intends to continue hunts in future seasons under a modified program. It noted the Japanese government has yet to grant permits for the next season. Japan's Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshihide Suga said the government is analyzing the content of the International Court of Justice's decision and will make its decision in due time. In India, the country's Supreme Court has legally recognized transgender people as a third gender. The landmark ruling on Tuesday grants the transgender community the same basic rights as other Indian citizens in a move that seeks to end centuries of discrimination. Activists welcome the sweeping verdict as it includes groups such as transsexuals, cross-dressers, and eunuchs. India's Law Minister Kapil Sibal said the judgment would help the transgender community overcome social and economic challenges. About 2 million transgender people are estimated to live in India. And finally, the city of Boston held a moment of silence Tuesday local time, remembering the victims and the survivors of the Boston Marathon twin bombings 1 year ago. A crowd of about 2,700 people, including family members, first responders, and citizens, took part in a 2-hour tribute at Boston's Heinz Convention Center, punctuated by speeches by survivors and U.S. Vice President Joe Biden. Boston Strong was the slogan, as the executive director of the Boston Athletic Association, Tom Grilk, announced the race will be back on next week. Meanwhile, relatedly, police have taken into custody a man in connection to 2 unattended backpacks found at the marathon's finish line Tuesday evening. We are getting word the bags have been destroyed in controlled detonations by the bomb squad.
Now, while the nation was mainly focused on Lee Yong-dae's reinstatement after briefly being suspended for violating anti-doping regulations, others were headed over to the Incheon International Airport to welcome Son Yeon-jae after 2 successful World Cup events. And with the press conference taking place with her arrival, the rhythmic elf stated that she's a lot more confident than she was before and is now very comfortable with her music choice. She added that although she still lacks the techniques compared to the other world-class gymnasts, she's making sure that she limits her mistakes with each event. Meanwhile, she's now set to compete for the 3rd straight week at the Korea Cup later this week. And now moving over to some Tuesday night's KBO action. The Kia Tigers win on a walk-off bases-loaded walk in the 9th inning, 5-4, with the NC Dinos beating the Lotte Giants in 12 innings, 5-3, and the Doosan Bears beat the Samsung Lions 4-1. Meanwhile, let's take a look at one of the biggest rivalries in Korean baseball, the El Mexico series between the LG Twins and the Nexon Heroes. And of course, going into the game, here we go over to the 4th inning of the game. Chung Hee-yoon drills this one to deep left field, back, gone, a solo shot, put LG up 1-0. But the 6th inning of the game, this time it's Lee-taek of the Nexon Heroes, and there it goes, going, gone. And we have a tie ball game, 1-1. Now this game goes to the distance here, and in the 11th inning, Kang Jung-ho drills his pitch to deep center field, a leadoff double. Before this next play, Kim Min-sung through the left side, an RBI single, and the Nexon Heroes take a 2-1 lead. Next batter, Lee Sung-yeol, an RBI double to left center field, and it's 3-1 Nexon Heroes as they hold on to take this game 3-1. And now shifting over to some Tuesday's AFC Champions League group stage results, as both South Korean clubs struggled last night, with the Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors losing to Yokohama 2-1, with Ulsan getting shut out against Western Sydney 2-0. And now with that, finishing things off with a major international sports news here. Michael Phelps, who retired after winning 22 Olympic medals, including 18 gold medals, will return to swimming once again. Now, Phelps, who is the most decorated Olympian of all time, will be swimming competitively for the first time since the 2012 London Games and will enter in 3 events: the 50 and 100-meter freestyles and the 100-meter butterfly, according to his longtime coach, Bob Bowman. The 29-year-old will continue to stay in shape and compete as he hopes to compete once again at the 2016 Rio Olympics. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day, and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Well, if you're feeling scratchy and eyes are sore, that's probably due to the high level of dust particles. I mean, as we can see, almost entire nation has been swept by this toxic smog, and it's likely to remain this high till the late afternoon. In fact, fine dust advisory was issued in Seoul as of 8 a.m. this morning. But we should continue to have warm temperatures with those unwelcome visitors. So don't forget to have a face mask with you before heading out. And if possible, try to stay indoors today. But thankfully, dust should wash out tomorrow as we have welcome rain in the forecast starting tomorrow morning from the south. Then it will expand to the entire nation by the late afternoon. With that in mind, here are the readings for today. The afternoon high in Seoul will hike up to 21, while highs in Daegu will soar to 27, and Gwangju and Busan should top out at 23 later in the day. For other regions, it looks like down on Jeju will reach to 19, Daejeon peak at 24, and Mount Keungang should see a high of 15 in the afternoon. Well, that's all for now, and let's send it back to Mark in the studio.
Thank you very much, Jeon. And before we go, an update on this passenger ferry that sunk about 20 kilometers, sinking rather, 20 kilometers off Korea's southwestern Jindo Island. There are conflicting reports about how many people were on the ferry, but it's believed to be in the region of 400 plus. Helicopters and Navy vessels are in the area, pulling the people out of the water. The reports around 120 people have been rescued, and the majority of the passengers do have their life jackets on and will hopefully be pulled out safely. The ship was heading from Incheon to Jeju Island, and we'll bring you the latest on this incident, of course, in our next newscast at noon Korea time. Until then, goodbye.